You look nothing like Ncuti. Listen, I just want to talk about season 1. All right, Ncuti, you're not a superhero. Doctor Who is he's an anti-hero, really. So you've got it wrong. All right, you've got it wrong. And anyway, I've got a cover for my holidays. So shh. From Rogue to Space Babies, Devil's Cord to Church on Ruby Road. When I was not shouting at the TV screen, my mouth was agape, almost as wide as the slobbering mouth of that weak Jabba the Hutt impersonation. Yeah, the gobbling kin at how Doctor Who was being portrayed, ambushed, abused. Yeah, RTD, I can use 3 words when one will suffice. In this present iteration with this co-production media cult of Disney and BBC, you could not help compare how the 15th Doctor was behaving and talking to any previous Doctors we'd seen. It did not feel like the same character. It was like a cheap amateur dramatics version lampooning Doctor Who at your local college with some miscast trying to project meaningless dialogue written by the Blue Rinse head of English, who thought writing some skit from popular culture would get her a few more Christmas cards from the sixth formers. And rather than the RTD philosophy to those stressed or anxious, which was to have a weeping, twerking, spitting, wall thumping Doctor, I felt humour was better, or better still, ridicule. Oh yeah. Many of our shows had a comic item called "What Would the Ncuti Doctor Do?" when placed in a scene from classic Doctor Who. It was irresistible. Shall we take a look?
Here we go.
This is Gary's favourite section.
Whose favourite section?
Yours.
Gary's.
Me?
Oh, yeah, you love it every week, yeah.
I have to keep kicking while I can, you see. I've got to... The only thing about this movie is anything you take from it, it looks so dark. So this is obviously the moment with Sylvester still being the Doctor, and he just exits the TARDIS, turns and faces loads of a gang with weapons. What would the Ncuti Doctor do in that situation, facing thugs?
Run.
Scream like a little girl.
He'd run screaming.
Like a little girl. Like a little girl.
Now you see, I've written down our answers thus far, Gary, on this item that you rehearsed. No, the responses. The responses.
Why am I getting blamed for this?
What would the Ncuti Doctor do?
Segment.
Yeah, what would the Ncuti Doctor do? It's either twerk, cry, paralyzed with indecision, disappear in a Doctor Light episode, go and find a fella, be emotional, need his companion to help him, sing and dance. Those are the versions we've had so far. So he faces a gangland. You know, they've all got guns there and everything. What would the Ncuti Doctor do?
I think maybe like a Thriller, something like that, where he starts dancing and then all the other gang members just kind of join in as background dancers, and they do a whole like number in the alley.
I thought he's in the back alley. The guns might be a problem, but he might think, God, 4 men, go on. Yeah, I'm up for it. But because I don't know, he's that type of Doctor, you know. What about this one then? We've got one more with the Sylvester Doctor. He's getting operated on, and I have to say, I found that bit in the movie brilliant. There were two moments in the movie I actually jumped. One was the snake by the bed, right before it actually possessed Eric Roberts' character, and it was this moment when Sylvester's Doctor was being operated on. He was sedated, and then suddenly he bolts up. Now that made me jump like hell. What would the Ncuti Doctor do in this circumstance when he's being operated on and attacked? What do you reckon?
Hey, babes, can I have your number?
Yeah. Well, he'd be singing the song, wouldn't he?
No, the camera would have zoomed in on his face, and you would have seen like a single tear go down his cheek.
Cry and then flirt with a male orderly.
I think he'd ask for a set of scrubs because he thinks he could accessorize them and make them into a nice outfit.
Yeah, each strike a pose, you know, because he'd be topless.
Although This is, as you said, Brendan, this is a very kind of key, dramatic, intense scene. So I just think Ncuti would be at a loss as to how to play it.
And I have to say, I've got to keep up with the thread because they're sending the jokes in like hell. So on the first one, I think it was, which when he faces all again, he would run up the inclusive ramp. The other thing is, I think
Crimpling, put up Crimpling's.
I will do. I'll find it. I was just thinking the dot and bubble at the end. I think if you can just see the Sylvester Doctor there and think it's the Ncuti Doctor, he'd say, "Don't you dare diss me, and why are you being so racial with me, and all the rest of it, just because I'm a Brit abroad." I'm coming down to
also very accurate for San Francisco because you are still likely to get killed in San Francisco.
I think Robbie secretly, like Gary, is liking the cruelty of all this. Divine and Dragon, pick a fella from the gang to flirt with. Well, you have to pick them off. Divide and conquer, they call it. Kerklud, Ncuti would scream and the gang would run away terrified. Greg Smith thinks he'd soil himself. Cry and run away. I'll just
try not to spit beer out.
I think if he had time, he'd just get back in the TARDIS and have a Dr. Light episode.
Yeah.
Paul Richards, Gatwa would have his mouth open, then he'd cry. Oh, yeah, paralyzed with indecision, yes. Frobisher, Ncuti, it was unbelievable, that series. What were they thinking? Well, yeah. Ncuti would twerk the night away at the New Year's Eve party while the master completes his plan. We've got time for a dance, surely.
Yeah, it would be Rogue the sequel.
Yeah. Michael Nemo, Ncuti would have done what men do to survive in prison. Oh my God.
It is San Francisco.
Oh yeah, he'd go, "I'm in San Francisco." There you go.
At all time periods, but especially in this time period.
He would cry me a river and then walk on it. Here we go. Drop his pants. I mean, honestly.
No, that's what they do now in San Francisco, and is go to the bathroom.
Now, Pete Harrington has one. He said he'd do a moonwalk missing all the bullets. So, it'd be like that scene in The Mask where the mask is like bending and missing all the bullets. That's what it would be like here.
The Matrix, yeah. Is this the one you mentioned, Crimpling?
Yes.
Ncuti would find a nurse's uniform in a locker and wear that. Yes, Crimpling, I nearly picked that scene until returning to the TARDIS and then put on a flamboyant costume to rival the masters and flirt with him. Yeah. The answer seems to be flirting in season 1, doesn't it? I have to say. Paul Richards, yes, the operating theatre moment was exhilarating. I have to say, it was Doctor Who meets ER. It really was quite gritty. I loved... Look, I know we're doing the Ncuti item, but it gives us ideas to talk about the programme. Did anybody else find they were quite gripped till about 45 minutes in? Then I started to slightly lose the way a bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, what, with the movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously,
the first half is better.
I loved the when I say the violence, it was very gritty. I loved the whole sequence with Sylvester. I loved the birth of the McGann. I loved the McGann with Grace Holloway. And then when we started doing this beryllium atomic clock and all that stuff and the car chase, I started to lose myself.
There is a weird moment. Sorry, carry on.
No, go, please go.
There's a moment where he's got the gun with the policeman at the bike with Grace. And I don't know if it's just a continuity error, but if I recall from watching this the other night, they take the keys out of the bike. Then they put the keys back in. It's like, you're trying to take the bike. Stop messing about. Watch it back. There's a moment they really mess up with the keys for the bike. And it's like, oh, what are you doing? You just need to take the bike.
Well, he's the bike bit. And it was with here he is. What would the Ncuti Doctor do? So, I mean, I've got Hasler Scott.
Hope Mel was there to ride it for him.
Yeah. Ncuti would dress.
No, you know what? He'd be going, oh, love the leather.
I know. Just take me to a bath. The thing is, remember, and I'm going to call out season 1 as much as I think it deserves to be. Every time we do a classic or Doctor Who movie, because I think while RTD sells as a dud, I want to keep reminding people, what would this 15th Doctor do in any of these scenarios? Because it shows you that canon has been changed and the Doctor's character is incongruous to the rest. In this situation, before I start to make it so I'm going to do a sex joke again, when it was Empire of Death, Mel drove the Doctor. In the movie, the Doctor got on the front of the bike and drove, and he just regenerated.
Well,
Brendan, that moment there.
When men are allowed to be heroes in their own franchises. I'm just going to go there.
Honestly, though,
that's not controversial. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. And that moment where he got on the bike and rode the bike, because when I watched this back the other night, I immediately the Mel scene came into my mind, with Mel getting on the moped and him looking all scared, like 1 o'clock half struck. You know, he'd be indecisive. He'd want Grace to ride the bike for him. That's what Ncuti would do right there. That's the moment.
And you know that, you know, I mean, I know that they're bringing Unit back for that spin-off, but if Unit comes back next season in the actual show, there'll be a scene where the Doctor hops onto the Segway behind Morris Gibbons and holds on while Morris drives the Segway.
You see, this is it, Rachel. This is my favorite item. Gary's favorite item is if I do the segue with Morris. That's it. So, Gary, I promise you, I'll try and get a segue in with Morris every week, right?
What would you had actually a valid point, though, that I don't think we should kind of gloss over, Brendan, that you asked a minute ago, is like, because I totally agree with you. The first half is much more engaging to me than the second half, because it's quieter and it proceeds at a more relatable pace, especially those long scenes where he's getting to know Grace in the house, you know, and all of that. And then when they start bringing up, you know, the plot point, it kind of kicks in, but then it goes from like 0 to 100. The pace just becomes manic in the second half. And I'm not talking about because of the chase, which is fine, you know, the car chase. But after that, you know, the music ramps up, and the music throughout this whole thing was just way too overpowering, you know, at times. But, you know, you get into these things of, you know, all of a sudden there's Eye of Harmony, you know, inside the TARDIS. And then you get into all these theoretical stakes, like the Earth is going to be sucked into the Eye of Harmony. As an audience member watching it, that's all you're doing is watching it. You don't feel any of this when they're tossing out things like, oh, the whole Earth's going to be sucked into the Eye of Harmony. And at this point, I would think a general audience member goes, okay, I'm totally, I don't even know how to react to what I'm watching anymore. But yeah, it was, the change in pace was just off the scale.
Michael Nemo, he thinks it's more interesting than Robot, Castrovalva, and Twin Dilemma. Julian Gabriel Clark, hello, hope you're well. The Millennium Bug was a conspiracy theory at the time, which everyone bought into. Yeah, so this fell into that.
Yes.
Now, just to finish off some of these shooties, and you can be brief, of course. He's just been reborn, so to speak. All he's wearing is a blanket. He's naked under there. What would the Ncuti Doctor do?
Flaunt
it. drop it and flash the guy.
Because when we did Rories of the Deep, we had a similar situation where the Peter Davison Doctor must have stripped, got the long johns and everything, and got, you know, changed like one of the guards. What about this one then? He's in the back of Grace Holloway's car. Remember that sequence, which could look a bit problematic now if everybody wants to get sensitive, where he's following her to the car park and all the rest of it, and then he gets in her car. But basically, he's still got that horrible wire in his chest. And it's another moment that nearly made me jump, because he was there, and then it was gross to see the Doctor still struggling, wasn't it?
This was one of my favorite bits in the film, actually.
Mm.
Actually, him following her to the car park, that's also San Francisco today, also. So
yeah.
The scene with the stent was, it was horrible to see, but it did give it some real grit. I liked this scene. I didn't like the gore of it. I'm not some sick weirdo, but I did like that. I like that he takes it out, and then it sort of leads to Grace. Look, this is how you killed me. You know, not the bullet.
Yeah, I don't. She wouldn't have been. She wouldn't have been
pulling it out, isn't he?
She wouldn't have been convinced otherwise.
No, she had to see the probe that would, and also that probe or the stent there. That's a new piece of technology. So only she would recognize that was something that she had put in his human body.
Yeah, because no one's just going to put one of these in, are they?
I was just going to say, Brendan, please don't ask us to talk about what Ncuti would do with a probe.
Well, as
it would be coming out of a different orifice.
As Frobisher says here, this bit really showed him as an alien, and I think that's the issue we've got with the Ncuti Doctor, that in many ways he seems too human. And so I'm going to make a different point there about the Ncuti Doctor. Now, this one, I'm going to get in there first. When he's in Grace Holloway's house and she says her boyfriend's left, he seems to have, it's a very fast part of the plot. I know it's all very convenient. He's already removed the furniture. I mean, basically, she was at the opera with him. And to me, she's worked overnight and he's already emptied the settee and everything. I mean,
sounds like he knew it was coming. Sounds like that was already clear while they were at the opera.
That went fast. Yeah, that was on the.
You gotta rip the Band-Aid off, Brendan.
Fancy taking the settee overnight, the swine.
The one part about this when work the day is that in California you can't find U-Hauls.
So here, you remember the bit
That's
in Rogue?
right.
Remember the bit in,
leaving.
Remember the bit in Rogue where the Doctor and Rogue were comparing the housekeeping of each of their spaceships. And so it made me think of this, that when he's in Grace Holloway's house, it might be a version of the episodes they used to do, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which we used to watch, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. So I think the Ncuti Doctor might actually give us some tips on maybe decor. He might give us some kind of,
What, go all Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen on her and what to do and how to deck the house out?
Very flamboyant if they went.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Brendan.
Stripes everywhere.
What in the world gives you the idea that the 15th Doctor is an expert on decor? He has one piece of decor in his entire thing, and that's a jukebox that he never plays.
Well, yeah. I mean, white is the color, obviously, but obviously not. I mean, but anyway, there we go. So there's that one almost there. Do you know he's in the park with Grace, and this is one of the exuberant kisses where it wasn't romantic. It was just excitement that he worked out who he was, because he worked out he was from Gallifrey and he was a Time Lord. But I thought the Ncuti Doctor in a park at night, oh heck, we're in trouble.
Well, I mean, come on. For one thing, she's the wrong gender.
Yeah,
there'd be no kiss.
He'd have left her in the park and gone looking. I think that's what would have happened there.
Well, also in modern day San Francisco, you just wouldn't be doing this at dark in the smoke. You'd be taking your life in danger.
So there you go. That's our little item, just to remind ourselves.
Oh, over the overseer has a great point. He said that Ncuti would probably raid Grace's wardrobe for an outfit.
Well, yeah, that's very true. Them little short tops. I don't know what you.
That's if Grace's partner didn't take her clothes as well.
Yeah, well, yes. I think there was more to that relationship.
We're gonna keep doing these. What would Ncuti do until the day in the far, far future when we come up with something that actually he would do better. But don't hold your breath.
Yeah. Yes, it's very important in comparisons. When you review and to compare, and of course, what would Ncuti's Doctor do in the Invasion of the Dinosaurs scenario? So here's one. Well, actually, just to get us going, I know everybody instinctively wants to say cry. Well, actually, the famous puppet that cried in the 90s was Spitting Images' Paul Gascoigne, who cried when England lost a match. But there you go. So if I can start with this one, if you can see it, it's when they got caught in part 1. And John Pertwee's third Doctor is talking to the photographer from the army. And then, of course, he gets ready for his mugshot, which he thinks he would look good for. How do you think the Ncuti Doctor would deal with this scenario?
He'd strike a pose.
Yeah.
Do you know, I feel like this is all my fault because I suggested that understudy thing way back when we had this for real. It's just gone the other way.
He'd be blowing a kiss for sure. He would absolutely blow a kiss.
Oh, he'd get his tush out. I'll tell you what, there wouldn't be that. Yeah,
there'd be some thrusts going on.
Yeah, it'd be catwalk time. Yeah, it would. I think definitely. I think this would play to his vanity. This one, like because the one voguing. Yeah, well, this is it, Michael, because what I noticed in the 15th Doctor series about this emotionally kind Doctor that RTD wants to display compared to these thuggish classic Doctors is the vanity of the Ncuti Doctor, who knows I'm good looking, aren't I? He knows he's good looking and he says so. That just doesn't hit the rhythm of the Doctor to me.
He'd be saying, "I'm too sexy."
Oh, that's true. He'd be singing. Of course he would. Now, in this situation, when, as you know, Captain
I'm
Yates...
too sexy for my T-Rex.
Yeah. I know T-Rex, he could have done a song from T-Rex. You had this when the T-Rex appeared, and of course the sabotaged gun by Captain Yates. And so he's in peril. He's going to die. What would the Ncuti Doctor do?
He'd bang that metal door.
Let me in, let me in. Bit like
the crying and screaming, absolutely.
It'd be a shouty Doctor.
Yes, shouty Gatwa.
Run away, run away.
So Timescales has got to be some twerking going on and singing and dancing. We're not being predictable, you know, Timescales. You know, we have understood this Doctor after this heavy season of 8 episodes.
Or no, you know what? Actually, for that scene, he would probably do what he did when Sutek showed up. He'd be paralyzed and unable to move.
Yes, he needs the Brigadier or somebody to run there or get on a scooter or
run, grab him, pull him out.
Yeah. What about this one then? This is when he had to do the Cockney accent. You know, he had to do a bit of the, you know, you're a narc or whatever it was, and distract the guard and have a fight. I mean, you know, this Doctor, he was fighting and, you know, wrestling this lad. What do you reckon the Ncuti Doctor would do in this scenario?
That's definitely twerking. That's twerking.
No, he wouldn't make him mad by staging this fight about, oh, you narked on me. He would just try to come on to the guy, and the guy would naturally probably just get annoyed and, you know, start the fight that way.
I mean, fights.
It would show a strong message of why homophobia is bad.
There you go. That's the point of this whole story, you know, Hugh.
I know. I was waiting for the line. Yeah. I can see from the thread, people just, I you know, we have a lot of sarcasm here because of, now.
Or no, you know what he'd probably say? He'd probably go to the guy. He'd probably like have a chat up line to him, like, you know, you put the ass in Jurassic or something like that. And it would just like tick the guy off.
You see, I think this one, when he sees General Finch and Captain Yates for the first time in ages, just like in the Legend on Ruby Sunday, he'd be going, Captain Yates, you're looking good. You look as though you've been in the gym. And it'd be all the usual kind of bigging up the physique and whether you're tasty or not. And General Finch is going, what about me? I go to the gym too. But
I play golf.
Brendan, don't you know that the Ncuti Doctor does not shake hands? The Ncuti Doctor hugs. We should all know that by now.
Yes. I mean,
it wouldn't be no handshakes when a hug will do.
It's also pre-COVID. Remember when during COVID they said handshakes are going to die culturally?
And he'd probably also tell Mike, you know, give me the lovin'.
Yes.
I did think of COVID in the line whenever Yates is talking about London being deathly quiet. It reminded me of sort of like 4 years ago.
It reminded me of that moment when they said they'd gone to tier 3 or 4 and everybody in London did what they weren't supposed to do and leave the blooming place and infect the rest of us. Thanks, London. Yes.
Went off to their second homes around the country.
It did occur to me when watching it, though, that if you were doing something, I mean, I know we didn't have evacuations for COVID, but if you were doing something about trying to shut something down and trying to do something like this now, then you wouldn't use a dinosaur, you would use something like COVID.
Yeah, except the trains were working. Isn't it funny? The trains were working during COVID to get everybody out of London, but they don't now. So the one that one Hoovian 16, I think in moments like this, Ncuti would just act cool and act as friendly as ever. We have supporters on all sides, and that is allowed. Mm-hmm. And let's have a look at this one. This one's interesting because, as you know, the T-Rex, Sarah's in danger here. He got her just in time. It was, you know, smashing the place to pieces. And then he puts her in the passenger side and he drives. He drives the Land Rover. I was thinking of Mel and I was thinking of Ncuti. He would have let the lady drive, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
Ncuti doesn't drive.
What's that?
But only after he puts his helmet on.
Well, yeah, yes. Doesn't matter whether she's injured or concussed. And on this one, we're in the cupboard, the lift closet, as it were. And there's the puppet, pterodactyl, whacking, and he's hitting that puppet back. I don't know, what response would you get from the shooty doctor here?
Singing.
He's under
Yeah, that's definitely singing.
Yeah, it'd be a sing off, yeah. or a flap off.
Do you know? Yeah, this is starting to get concerning, isn't it? We've had a season of Ncuti's Doctor, and all we can think of is he either will cry or dance or sing. Really,
he might save it.
Oh, he might do. Yeah.
He might save it. He might try and save it. He might sort of like go, "Oh, it's a poor pterodactyl."
A kind of Dr. Dolittle approach.
Yeah. And keep it clean, everybody. But he's in a very confined space with the Brigadier with the lights off. How would the shooty Doctor deal with this one?
Well,
just
probably forget while they were there. The brig would be going, "Doctor, what about the dinosaurs?" And the doctor he'd be going, "Huh? What? Oh, yeah, that's right."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that a time scoop? Are you pleased to see me? I don't know. I mean,
or he'd say, "Oh, you look great in the dark."
Yeah. Brigadier, I want to take you to the golden age. He's trying to. You notice he's distracting us because he's basically right. Here we go then. So it's another way of us reviewing key scenes from Deadly Assassin. So here's the first one, which actually I thought is the very opening credits almost, really. Yeah. Which when we had the first ever narration from the actual Doctor in Classic Who. And of course, it was very Star Wars. And of course, we had that scroll and that amazing Tom Baker velvety voice, so powerful. It was lovely. How would the shooty Doctor do this?
Yeah, I would say we would start it with, "Oh, babes, through the millennia."
I wondered if he'd sing this.
No, he'd started out. You'd hear this voice like it'd start with, "Oh, honey, have I got a story for you?"
Yeah.
Through the millennia. Yeah.
Yes. I'm not going to try and sing because we know that I can't, but I can just imagine him try and do some routine to this. The babes. I mean, this is. I think the thread do like us doing this because everybody goes off it. Let's have a look. Hey, B, so perfect. He'd lay a baby gap egg. Lisa, let's have a look. What would Shooty's Doctor do? The answer is always the same: cry. Or save that one. Lisa, you've peaked early. Mad McCam, hi, Castellan babes. You're looking good. Are you seeing anyone? Wink, wink, hump, hump. We've got lots of cry.
More like
it's not even that. It's not even that. You could, if you closed your eyes and listened just to Tom's narration, it just feels epic. It feels mythological, the way that he talks.
Yes.
I can't even begin to imagine what this would say, just the sound of it with Shooty reading it. It would just be like a flat, I mean, it would be, there's no possibility it would get anywhere near the power of Tom Baker reading this.
Do you know, I could do a whole show with this, Gary, because I have to say, it gets me laughing.
Face the most dangerous crisis in their long history. Ooh, babes.
Shooty's Doctor would have put the sash of Rassilon on and said, "Accessorize, honey," before snogging the president.
And you know what? Jumping ahead a little bit, you know where he's sketching in the courtroom or whatever?
Yeah.
He'd be sketching and then he'd look over at one and one would look back and he'd just wink at him.
I mean, maybe he'd wrap it.
We see people are saying he'd snog the president, he'd snog the master. The point is, he does seem to like people close to death, doesn't he? And we've seen that in Boom. Hey, B, he'd start singing a Judy Garland song on Annie thought. Oh, we've got our musical expert here, Anne, Rachel, with those huge chiclets.
Wow.
Babes, I know a great skin consultant. That's a good one from Dave Lynch. Well done. Well, we've only just started, so let's have another look at this one. What would happen here then, do you reckon? So this one, if I just show you a bit more closely, is the Doctor's still in the TARDIS. He's having a nightmare, or as you know, a premonition or something. As we know, the Matrix is being beamed into his head, but he can see some strange distorted Time Lords in the Panopticon. It freaks him out. He sees the president shot at, and he kind of sees himself shooting. What would the shooty Doctor do in this scenario, do you reckon?
He would run.
Yeah,
Eh?
100%.
Run.
Yeah, he wouldn't pick up the gun. He'd do that what he did in the hall during the finale. He would just kind of, you know, go into like a little, you know, fetal position.
Yes.
You know, up in the gallery and be panicked.
Do you know one thing that hasn't been said yet? I'm going to put for this one is, since this is the very beginning of the episode, and we have had 2 Dr. Light episodes, I think Shooty would say, I'm not going to be in this story. I'll leave it to somebody else to solve because it looks a bit hard. So I think this would be a Dr. Light episode.
He'd probably try and step on the viewfinder.
Yeah.
The little thing, you know. That would be his idea of a fairy circle.
I think you might see him in his bed scene, and he might just wet the bed. I think this is what happens. He has a nightmare, wakes up, cries, and moves on and thinks,
well, he would be in this scene in his pants, wouldn't he? So that would probably link with what you were just saying.
RTD would have had Mrs. Floods in it. We can easily see Gatwa being terrified and cowering somewhere in the corner. That's agreeing with our panel. Oh, yeah, the Mad McCam sod this, grab kilt and head down the disco. I want an easier time than this. Over the overseer, Shooty's Doctor would have taken Ruby with him on this story and would have shot her.
No, here's the thing. I you know what? I keep forgetting about the Christmas special because for the most part,
dare you?
Until you make me, I usually forget about it. But he would do, you know, what did he do with that Goblin King to distract? He hopped up on the little, you know, thing and started singing. So that's what he'd do. He would just, you know, hop up on the little wall there, and to distract the assassin, he would just start, you know, singing up in the gallery.
Yeah, I mean, I think this item's
My
got
name
legs.
is the Doctor, and I've got to say, please don't shoot, or I'll run away. Something like that.
Me and Gary are going to make a hit record. And
Right, said Fred, shaking his little tush on the catwalk. Yeah.
So there you go. You know, we've got more on this one, I tell you. So now I'll let John come in first, because John, you referenced this about underwear. I mean, he was in his long johns there. I don't think the Shooty Doctor would be found disrobed with that much on.
No, he wouldn't. He would. The robe would be gone.
Yeah,
and it would just be a pants and boots, probably, wouldn't it?
Specifically, Y fronts.
Yeah, and the Chancellor Guards would literally be he'd be looking at him going, "Ooh."
And he'll say, "Don't worry, it will ride up with wear."
Yeah.
He'd be wearing that metal bra that he wore to the awards show.
Yeah. Like, you can come with me, and you can come with me.
Yeah, one at a time, lads. Mike Disney, those Time Lord outfits would make for a super dance routine. Oh, can you imagine it? Like the Devil's Cord meets Deadly Assassin. Get Shirley Ballas back. Rachel will agree to that. I better not have said that.
I would, actually, because, you know, at the end of the day, that was the highlight of the episode for me, was the Strictly Dancers.
What about this one then? Now, this is part 3. And as you know, most of the episode, or if not all really, is just in the Matrix. It's gritty. I always feel hot when I watch it, as if they've really delivered, as if you're somewhere tropical. You get the sound of that beautiful sound of the rocks and his boots. I love that sound. breaking the dinosaur egg, if that's what it is, being shot in the arm and the leg, making a poison and little Janus thorn. Isn't that funny? Ironically, the week before he has Face of Evil, he's got his little Janus thorn there.
Yeah.
And look how dirty his fingers are. I mean, I just want to point out, look how dirty this doctor's fingers are.
Do you know what? He would run out. I was going to, one bit I know specifically is, you know, in the scene where he's hiding from Goth and the spider comes down in front of him, Ncuti would run out from that and he'd go, "Oh, spider babe, spider." And he'd go, "Oh, I'm dirty, I'm dirty."
There wouldn't be any of this.
No.
The whole Matrix thing for Ncuti would take place in that gay dance club that Ruby first saw him in. And you know, he would just be, it would all take place there.
He'd see the clown in the bathroom.
Oh, yes.
There wouldn't be the hunter. There wouldn't be, you know, the clown. There'd be that snowman.
No, I think it would be RTD, and it would just look back at him going, "You are by far the finest actor this country has ever produced."
Oh, vibes.
I just thought you'd never get the Ncuti Gatwa 15th Doctor with his nails dirty.
He'd need a nail brush.
Yeah. And I don't think he'd go in that water either, because it's like you need the right clothing for the water. I don't think he'd have gone wading into the water, especially if it's muddy and cloudy. Over the Overseer, even trapped in the Matrix, Ncuti would conjure a digital ruby and use it as a human shield.
There you go.
There you go. The respect for this doctor knows no bounds. And then the final one there actually links to the modern day anyway. Actually, when you look at the Master's gun in episode 4, to be quite honest, it's Rogue's gun. And if Ncuti as Doctor is a size queen, you can see why he went with Rogue. Why didn't he go with the Master then? Because look, it's a big chunky gun, that, I tell you.
I don't know. We should ask Tom Baker, shouldn't we?
Well, he was playing asexual, of course. Good old Tom.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
about
you know,
that.
he's stuck with the script.
Yeah.
So, but actually, if you do look at the gun, they do look very similar, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Very good there. There you go. I've joined 50 years up for you folks there. So what would Ncuti Doctors do? We'll have to think of something new.
You saying Rogue's a sequel, Brendan? Is that what you're saying? Rogue's a sequel to Deadly Assassin?
Also,
don't give him ideas.
what Ncuti's doctor would do is he would spend all of his time finding somebody else to solve the problem because he'd be completely incapable of doing it himself.
Oh yes, I'll do it again. Yeah, let's
Gary
do it
loves
again.
it so much. He played it twice.
Gary loves it so much. No, so here we go. We know the score by now. We take scenes that you may want to discuss from the story we're reviewing, and we give it an angle. So, what would the Ncuti Doctor do in this scenario? He's running down the street, and he's exterminated. Actually, any thoughts?
Well, he wouldn't be running down the street to a woman.
That's right. That's very true.
I can't even begin to tell you how happy I would be if this happened to the Ncuti Doctor. I'd be like jumping out of my chair and going, "Yes!"
I'll tell you what. Well, this is.
And then I'd replay it about 6 times.
This is the most correct you can ever be. Archer Collins says, "Cry," because we always say cry, but I have to say he would really cry, saying he's really hurt.
I know what he'd do. He'd blow up the whole planet because, honey, he's a bigger bang than he looks.
Yeah.
No, he'd blow up the whole planet. So he'd do. We don't need. I mean, that would scupper the Daleks' plan. So
Sean, how come exterminating the Doctor there is no issue, but RTD now calls it an extinction event?
Because he went insane. That's why.
Yeah. He went. He had a time shift, and he went and saw all things through time. So basically, Dalek Khan is now Russell T Davies as he is.
Yeah.
You need to stop applying logic to it. I say it on my podcast all the time. Stop playing
think
logic.
the shooting doctor would be quite upset at falling over and getting his trousers wet, because that would ruin some of the fashion, I think.
He wouldn't be wearing trousers.
As he fell, he would do a little twerk move.
I mean, there was this moment, you know, when Rachel was saying she loved the whole shadow proclamation moment. I loved that. I loved the graphics. I just loved all that lot. But anyway,
when the planet reordered themselves, it's great.
Well, at that moment when you get the planet reordered and all the rest of it, and David Tennant's Doctor gets very excited. He jumps on some of the puffies and does his kind of, glasses look, he gets all gawky. What would the shooty Doctor do in this scenario? Because it's a moment of excitement and exuberance.
I know. Donna, what do you mean by the bees disappearing? That's what he would do. Nothing would happen.
Do you think?
Yeah, they'd be stuck.
Oh, yes, he'd be paralyzed for an episode.
Of what's going on? I'd have to work it out. No,
he'd call that shadow proclamation the woman. He'd call her, "Oh, honey, oh, babe." There'd be a lot of honey and babe comments when he's talking to them.
So what he would do
I
is
would
he
love
would
to see
Spice Up Your Life, and he'd dance around the room.
Yes, I think he'd moonwalk. I think he'd be, and then, hey, baby. I mean, I know Sean's going to come in a minute, but Rob Fellows here says from the previous one with the extermination, he would wear that metal breastplate he wore in that promo pic. The ray would bounce off it.
That wasn't a promo pic. He wore that to the award show, the BAFTAs, I think. To the after party.
Gary, I'll say this carefully. Archer Collins says, he just repeats the line I just said. But there you go. Say no more. I did say it, Archer Collins. I did. I know. I led it. I did. That's terrible. So, Sean, what were you going to say? Did you have a thought on this one?
I mean, there'd be no taking command. This, Whitaker and Shooty's Doctor they don't take command of a situation. You wouldn't get it. Although I've got to be honest, and this is genuinely, I would love to see Shooty's Doctor call one of the Jadoon babes. I would love that. like, please say them in the next series.
Oh no,
yeah, no, just like
babes.
See, even we could write a better crappy show than they can.
There'd be a joke about him getting the horn. There'd be something.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for that.
No, yeah. Well, look at how they're dressed. All that for rubber as well. Oh, there's jokes galore.
I imagine sort of like most people won't be aware of the British radio show Round the Horn.
Oh, yes.
Which is way too old for sort of even me. But if you haven't listened to any of Round the Horn, it's worth listening.
Can I just say something controversial when we do this comparison? When you look at Stolen Earth and Journey's End in its entirety, I am more aware that in season 1, I have criticised the shooty Doctor for being quite indecisive and paralysed in action. How many times was the David Tennant Doctor stood in the TARDIS going, I can't do anything? No. There were loads of them. And I have to say, in Journey's End, Gary, when he's in the Davros lair, the David Tennant Doctor didn't solve anything. People were dying. People were going to blow up planets.
Well, but I mean, he could. He physically couldn't. I mean, he and Rose were in those.
Yeah.
Little beams or whatever they were in.
Yeah. But in essence, the Doctor was useless.
But see, that whole scene was about not the Doctor himself, but the effects that he'd had on his companions. Davros said that he'd turned them into weapons. He'd weaponized them.
Yeah.
And then, when they all come in, they all have like an effect and kind of, beating up the Daleks and doing all that. So that episode, that sequence to me was focusing on the dialogue was about the companions, and then they come in and actually help out later.
Do you know what the difference is? Do you know what the difference is in Tennant's Doctor, Eccleston's Doctor, Capaldi, Smith, and the classic Who Doctors? The difference between those Doctors is that even when they're in a situation where they are physically stuck, you always get the feeling that they're just biding their time, that they are working out in their head, right, this is what I need to do. Once I get out of it, I can do this. Yeah, we know in New Who that, a lot of the companions come up with the solutions, but you get the impression that he's always in charge. I mean, look at the companions; like they are quite skilled, and I love the Stolen Earth. But at the beginning of that, they're all like, "Where's the doctor? Have you called the doctor?" Like they're all like, "Yeah, we can do our bits, but we need the doctor. We can't do this without him."
So with this element, we've got them all in the TARDIS, all the children of time, all the companions, 2 doctors. What would the Ncuti Doctor do in this scenario?
Sing.
Well, if Ncuti's had all his, companions from all the stories around him, well, that means Rogue would be there, and then so he would grab Rogue and he would like, come on, and then they'd go off up the ramp to one of the, back rooms in the TARDIS while leaving everybody else to solve the problem.
I think he would allow Jackie to pilot the TARDIS, so then he can free Captain Jack for them just to go to one of the other rooms, because that's what would happen. Because remember in Rogue, Gary, he didn't care whether anybody died.
You know how Donna was reacting to Captain Jack? That would be the Doctor reacting to Captain Jack and all the other people.
Rachel?
I have one. You know the bit where Martha is looking at the camera, but she's not really looking at the camera. He will probably push Martha out the way. Sorry, Sean, I know you really like her, but I think that's what he would do. Look at the camera, not at I can't remember who she's standing next to, not at the person she's standing next to, and he'll just wink and go. Yeah. So where's the twist at the end?
Yeah, he likes to wink at the camera.
What about this one? They're in the TARDIS.
I've got one. I've got when the TARDIS is in the Xeon energy and it's like burning up. He'd be like, "Honey, that may be hot, but I'm hotter." I think he would.
He might go there. For him. He might go there. What about this one? The Doctor's in the TARDIS with Captain Jack, Rose, the scenario, and Donna, and they're trapped on the Crucible, and they decide they better leave. And I've just got the shot when he's leaving. But what would the Ncuti Doctor do? Because I reckon he wouldn't leave the TARDIS. He'd let them. He wouldn't leave.
He'd put Donna out first.
Yes.
Don't listen to the heartbeats. Go out first.
Oh, yes. So there's that bit. What about this one then? Oh, a new Doctor, a naked Doctor appearing on the floor. I mean, I find this the hardest one to think about. It's a
I mean, this is it, because he's not going to let Rose run off with a version of himself.
No.
He's going to go, you could have had that, but I'm off with him now as well.
I mean,
this is what you could have won.
You're right. He was Ncuti, he'd go off with himself.
Do you know what? The more I think about the series, because I've seen Sex Education, and Ncuti Gatwa can actually act. I mean, whether he can only do one role, I don't know. We'll have to see. But it's a shame again that he couldn't. That they haven't given him anything to work with, whether he's good enough or not. He said nothing to work with. Same with Whittaker. Like I saw her in Broadchurch. She was decent in that. Again, they give her nothing to work with. Whether she's good enough, don't know. But it's
I've
just.
Seen her in quite a few
in this. I mean, I've got this is my final one of what would the Ncuti Doctor do. I mean, he's looking at himself. There's an element of vanity in the Ncuti 15th Doctor, and Rose, I think, would be pushed into a puddle. And I actually think that I really do. I mean, I know we have the same joke every week, but the point is we haven't seen much of the Ncuti Doctor. He's quite predictable. He's only got about 3 strings to his bow. And that's what would happen. I haven't seen any other version. He's either paralyzed with indecision, or he gets the hots for a bloke, or he cries. I mean, please tell me something else.
It's cry, spit, laugh, or disappear. That's about it.
I think the tragedy is that it is really, but has been really badly written in terms of that, and I struggle with a lot of what Russell Davies wrote for Tennant, because it is too emotional and it is too human and stuff like that. But he did give him more stuff to do, and he gives Ncuti nothing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I know when I often say Ncuti when I really should say the 15th Doctor, but it's just the thing with it is it's like he's just there's nothing there for him. And then on top of like the awful writing, you've got all these really ham-fisted things about modern day things that in about 3, 4, 5 years are going to be so dated. It's just untrue, and it's so forgettable. But really, it's a shame because like I didn't know till I was watching the Scent Sphere. Nice plug there. That Ncuti wanted. He went to them and went, "Oh great, what's my costume?" Because I think if they left him in that checkered suit with the orange. That's a really good Doctor looking suit. Fine, like look great, and then they say to him, no, we want to, like Brendan pointed out, we want to dress her up like a Ken doll. We want to put you in a different outfit every week because we've got a bit more money from Disney. It's like he's tried to come up with things, and then he's been knocked back. So to be fair, it's not a criticism of him. Because he will be portraying it as they want. Because if he went out there and did it, and the director didn't like it, or the writer said, "Hang on a minute, no, just rein it in a bit," But they've allowed him to cry here, cry there.
Yeah, Gary.
Really quickly, that last scene that you were showing about what would he do where they're at Bad Wolf Bay, this to me is the scene that's the most obvious what the Ncuti Doctor would do, because then when you had the duplicate Ncuti, would lean over to Rose, and what he would whisper to her was like, hey, this is a brand new planet. Where do you know any good bars where I could meet some men? That would be what he whispered in her ear there that we couldn't hear.